Hello, and you're listening to Spainfully Honest, the podcast where me, Paul,
and me, Catherine, talk about what it's really like living in Spain.
Each week we'll share stories, tips, and honest conversations about daily life here over in Spain. The good, the bad, and everything in between.
Whether you live in Spain or thinking about moving, or just want to know a little bit more, you're in the right place.
So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's get Spainfully Honest.
Okay. So welcome to episode 2 of Spainfully Honest. This week we're going to be talking about what you need to think about when you're moving to Spain. So everything is really going to be guided towards that. So whether you haven't moved, you're listening to this podcast from the UK, Ireland, United States, wherever you are, and you're thinking about moving to Spain, this is a really good one. And also, if you are living in Spain already and you're having like your tester period, well, then this is a great episode to listen to as well. So these are all really important questions and topics to think about and questions to ask yourself before you make the final decision.
Yeah, so if you haven't got any questions, please send them to hello@spainfullyhonest.com. If you could put in the sort of title, what it's about, what subject you're interested in, that'd be really good because that will help us filter the thousands of messages that we get. Yeah, please do that. That'd be fantastic.
Amazing stuff. How's your week been, Paul?
Yeah, it's been all right. We're in the process of selling my mother's house, and we are signing the sale of it on Friday. So we've been working on everything out. It's a country house. It's quite a big house. So we're having to squeeze in a 4-bedroom house into a 1-bedroom apartment by the coast. So that's been interesting, but just getting everything ready. So so that's Friday. And by the way, before I forget, I'm now down to 119 kilos.
Amazing.
Thought I'd mentioned it, so a little bit lost. Not as much as I expected, but a little bit lost.
Christ, the heat
What have you been doing?
the heat at the moment should certainly help out with it's so hot.
Yeah.
This is going to be me like every week on the episode on the podcast now until like November. God, it's so hot. I've been complaining about it all the time.
I've not really been affected by it much as far as try to compensate with the aircon and everything. But I think it was Wednesday we were moving some stuff at my mum's. Didn't take any water.
Oh.
And that is, when they talk about medical things about why you need to drink a lot, I felt properly ill. It was about 3 hours. It was the wrong time to do it. It was between sort of 1 and 3 o'clock. We'd been moving furniture and things. And at the end of that, I felt really seriously physically ill. Banging headache, really thirsty. And that's the first time I can honestly say it's really affected me in 59 years. But it is hot.
It's hot, like end of June. When this episode goes out, it's going to be July. But the other night, I was out for dinner and we were coming home at around 11:30 and it was 28 degrees at that time. And I had real feel 31 degrees, like at 11:30 at night. And that was the 28th of June. Like that is, it's so hot. There's not a breath of air. I can't sleep at all.
So now we've put you all off moving to Spain.
Something to think about.
Something to think about. No, I mean, seriously, you do it.
Yeah,
but you can compensate for it, don't you?
Yeah.
You have to stay out longer and do more. You should have come over at 1 o'clock and it'd have been down to 29 degrees.
29.
And if you had a lot more drink, you wouldn't have even noticed it.
I mean, for a lot of people, the weather is why they chose to move to Spain. But I don't know, why is it you chose to move to Spain? It wasn't for me. The weather was never my thing. Why did you choose to Spain? Was the weather your part of it?
Mine was sort of a change from the UK and an opportunity both at the same time. My wife's uncle, I think I don't have to mention this last week, my wife's uncle wanted to open a bar on the Costa del Sol. He'd been holidaying there quite a bit. I'd been to Spain a few times, but not that much. And he wanted to do it. I'd had 2 restaurants, so I was sort of a little bit of a chef. I call myself a cook rather than a chef. And so we said, yeah, why not? It was a change. It was opportunity. We had no kids at the time. An opportunity to move to Spain and try something. So that was my reason for coming. So he determined the location rather than us.
Yeah. It better, doesn't it, when it's not you choosing where you live as well,
Yeah, it was sort of moving to work, but moving forward. But I think probably the best thing, in my opinion, that we ever did because I really enjoyed it and I loved Spain. So that was my start. That was 1997.
1997.
Yeah, and then we moved back So we were only here a year. Then we moved back to the UK, and I started effectively doing a similar job to what I was doing before. And it's even worse when you've been and you sort of liked it, and then you go back. Every opportunity, we're out for long weekends. You find yourself looking at your holiday calendar from work and saying, right, well, there's a bank holiday then, and if I can use 2 days before, and we were coming just longer and longer.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, my parents bought a house here, so we could use that. And it was just any excuse to get back to Spain, and then we just decided that, we need to go back.
Yeah, I was thinking about it more and more as well after the episode we did last week. And of course, I was thinking how we always came on holiday to Spain. Like, there was always this, and for my mum and dad, there was always like a sense of inevitability. Like, they were always going to end up in Spain. And I don't think I ever really thought about me living in Spain. I just I spoke about it last week, going back and forth. So if you didn't listen to the first episode, I told a story about me going back and lasting 11 days, but I won't repeat it again now. But yeah, we always holidayed in Spain, and I loved it. And I guess there was like always a connection or something to Spain and the Spanish culture, because then I studied Spanish in school and I studied Spanish in university, which I also said last week, I'm sure. And so that's why I decided to move to Spain. I came to study in university in Madrid, and I ended up staying then. My parents bought a house in Murcia, and so that's why I moved down to Murcia. And why did you end up staying in Murcia? Why did you move to Murcia?
Yeah, same sort of thing really. So in the meantime, I was going back to the UK and coming back the second time. My parents bought a place in the outskirts of Murcia, the one we're settling actually on Friday. And so we had somewhere to come to, and that sort of determined the location. It wasn't that we necessarily would definitely have stayed here. It's just that was the base to come to, very easy, so that's why we did it. But one of the reasons for choosing Murcia at the time was that it was still very Spanish, and that's what we wanted to be. And the rural house it's on an organisation, a rural organisation of 21 properties, but there were only, my mother was the first foreigner to buy on there. It'd been built by Spanish people, for Spanish people, so we're the first there. So, that was our reason, and it just turned out that everything that we did in Murcia we liked doing, and so we stayed in this area. So yeah, it's good. Like I say, that little bit's coming to an end now, but now we've moved on to a different situation where we're now living by the coast. So we've got the experience in both locations, which is quite good.
I don't have rural. I always have this idea that I would like to live somewhere rural, but I don't know if I would actually get to live rural. Maybe it's just for holiday or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when I say rural, I mean, we're still 15 minutes away from everything, so it's not sort of rural.
Yeah.
But it's definitely different. The local village, or 2 bars, 1 small shop, and a bakery, and that's it. But it does give you a different experience, and it's a nice experience. I can go in there now because we've been here obviously 26 years, and I see people in the bar that were in pushchairs when I first went in, and you recognise them, and obviously they don't recognise you. But there's some people there that were sort of teenagers when I went in at 35, who are now fully grown family men with businesses and everything. And they still recognise you, still acknowledge you, which is great. It was a good experience. Coming up, we've got a couple of experts on sort of resort and coastal properties, and then another one to do country properties, just to give you some more information about both types of locations. So please, again, any questions, please send us your questions and your experiences to hello@Spainfullyhonest.com. And like I said, just put a little bit in the title to say what your question or your experience is about, and we'll get them to the experts for you and try and answer them for you.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote in my notes, technically I didn't choose Murcia.
Right.
Sorry, Murcia. But I did. I chose, so I came here because my mum and dad bought a house in here. So I probably said a few times that might not have been my first in my list of options for where maybe I wanted to base myself. I did like Madrid a lot. But I do really like Murcia. I've been here for a long time now as well. And it's the same thing as you. It has a lovely Spanish feel to it. It's very quaint, isn't it? It's not like over commercialized or anything like that, like some other places sometimes feel. And it can also almost feel like stepping back in time sometimes, like depending on the towns that you're in. Not Murcia City. Murcia City is very good. Murcia City is nice, isn't it? And they have a real proper gastro scene, like restaurant scene in Murcia, don't they?
Yeah, it is. It's not changed as much as other cities I've experienced. So when I was first here, I was near Malaga, and Malaga at the time, I was a little bit scared going into Malaga in an evening. This is back in '97. Yeah, it felt a little bit threatening. But then I've been working down there more recently. I went into Malaga. And the transformation, that is a real cosmopolitan city.
Yeah.
I mean, lovely. I mean, really. Whereas Murcia was nicer back then than perhaps Malaga, but it hasn't changed as much. So I'm not saying it's not nice, I'm just saying it's not changed as much. The centre is still very similar. I feel if you go into Murcia now, you know your way around.
Yeah,
you know what was where. Still, after not being in it in 20 years, Malaga, I didn't recognise it when I went in, but not in a bad way. It's fantastic. So it's interesting. Definitely recommend going to Malaga. Nice place.
Yeah, a lot of people go towards that area, don't they, when they're thinking about moving to Spain? So
yeah. Well, I think they go to sort of the Marbella area, but have a look at Malaga as well. Malaga as a city, very nice. Yeah, definitely recommend that.
So the location is something really important when you're choosing when to move to Spain. So it's one of the big questions you need to ask yourself. But also, you can feel free to try different places. It's something that I always say to people, if you can, to try a couple of different locations and see where it is that you like. Especially in regards to the weather, it's important. I cannot highlight it enough. As I said, I didn't technically choose Murcia and the only reason I say that is because I'm not mad on super hot weather. And I'm not a real beachy person. I go to the beach because my kids love it, and it's a great place to go with your kids. Yeah. But that's not necessarily,
Well, I'm the opposite. I'm not necessarily a beachy person, but my family always had boats, and so being by the coast is my first choice. And so that's good.
Yeah.
Different.
I would say I'm a city girl, really at heart, even though I've been living in this town for like 20 years.
Yeah. I personally like being in a town rather than being in the countryside. Because I like the fact, where I live now, I can literally go down the steps, I can walk to a little supermarket, buy my bits and go back.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't like having to get into a car all the time. So that's why people say to me, do you like where you live? I love where I live.
Aww.
And I love the house I live in. I'm very lucky. A lot of people love the house and not suffer, that's not the right place, but sort of think it's all right where they live. I love where I live. And I love what I live in, and I think that's fantastic, So, and I'm literally 50 metres from the beach, and I see it every day. The way I have to drive out my garage, I have to stop to join the road. In front of me is the Mall of Noah, and it is spectacular. It is spectacular.
Very nice.
Massively underrated. Nobody's ever heard of it, but it's fantastic.
It's a bit great for kids, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing about Spain and the weather is that it does give you, it's hot occasionally, but it does give you the possibility of doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
You can, if you say, in 2 Sundays we're having a barbecue and the family are coming, you can have a barbecue in 2 Sundays and the family can come. You don't have to put it in the garage and put the garage door open because it's raining, or cancel it, or have it. Or we're cooking everything on the oven because it's snowing outside. You never get that. You can do what you want to do whenever, because the weather is predictable. It might be different degrees of heat, but it's going to be all right. Yeah. It's very rare to have any kind of event cancelled.
Yeah, that's what I like about the weather, because I always thought about not liking the heat, but I love what comes with the good weather. The life that you can have because there's always good weather. And especially when it's springtime and autumn time. It's just there's so much that you can do. Like you're not locked in your house. Watching telly or something.
Even, around here, like I say, living on the coast, I live very close to the prom. And even in January, on a Sunday, that prom is packed.
Yeah.
Because, it might not be as warm, it might be 12 or 30 degrees, so people have got coats and everything, but you can find a beach-facing bar that's put up the toldos so that you don't get the wind, and you can sit there in the sun, and it's gorgeous, you know.
Yeah, like a little heat trap like that. It's still warm, isn't it? It's still really warm.
Fantastic. So so I know we've slagged off the weather a little bit, but it is still better than the option. The other option, definitely.
Just like to highlight that it is difficult to deal with the heat, but it brings so much. Like, it's the reason why, you know, life is how it is in Spain. You know, even if it's just something as simple as being able to sit out in your garden and read a book, going for a walk, going for a hike, whatever it is.
I think it definitely helps to the relaxed atmosphere that's here, the relaxed lifestyle. You know, you can sit outside in a cafe in Murcia in January and have a coffee, and people watch, and you just happen to have a fleece on or something. You know, it's fantastic. You know, you're not rushing from doorway to doorway to avoid the rain. I mean, when it rains, but it doesn't tend to rain very long. So,
it's hilarious because when it does rain, Spanish people act like they're going to.
It's the end of the world. It's the end of the world. When it starts raining, it's the end of the world. And to be honest, there's a lot of Brits like that as well. You know. I moved here for the weather and it's rained since yesterday. Very short memories, you know, and then 2 days later when it's 35 and go, this is terrible. I wish I'd never come here, it's so hot. Anyway, but everybody's the same. I mean, in the UK, you think people are sort of obsessed by the weather. It doesn't matter where you are. I mean, I think it's all over the world.
Everyone's obsessed with the weather.
All over the world.
Yeah, definitely. Ireland, they're mad.
Yeah.
My granddad used to say, why don't you just go and put a roof over the country and be done with it, because it rains all the time.
Yeah, you've got a point, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, here, you know, when you sort of be realistic about it, when it does rain, you think, we need the rain. Well, we need that rain. It rained, we had a difficulty. About a month ago, we had nearly 2 weeks of rain, which is the longest I can remember for a while, for quite a while. But, you know, we needed it. When you drove, I was going down to Aguillas, which is like an hour away south, and you go through all the sort of mountains to get there, and it was just sandy colour. You know, there was no life on the mountains, and then it rained for those 2 weeks, and went again 2 weeks after, and it was like for green, you know, like it was like looking at an English countryside. The difference that last 2 weeks made, so definitely need it. So I mean, it's worse, I suppose, if you come in on holiday and you come for the 2 weeks that it rains. You're coming to Spain for the weather and it rains for 2 weeks. That's not good. But when you're here, you know, what does it matter?
The only problem is sometimes when it does rain, it rains very heavily sometimes in a short period of time. And
the ground is so hard as well. So in some of the cases, the benefit's lost because it literally runs off. And that's what it causes the situation. You're going to build Gota Fria. Were you talking about Gota Fria?
Yeah.
So in September, and we haven't really had one for a couple of years, but sort of before that, in September you tend to get this sort of 2 weeks where it absolutely throws it down. And it can cause problems in certain areas. And it is something to think about when you're looking for locations. Get it checked, and it is possible to get them checked by your lawyer to check that it's not in sort of a drainage area. Because there are areas where houses were built because it hasn't rained for 3 years, then it rains and half of them get washed away. So not trying to put you off, but just
you have to think about it. Is it a floody kind of area? You know, so you definitely check. You know.
I mean, it's quite easy to do nowadays if you just go onto Google and search the area that you're going into and storms. You know, it'll come up if there's been issues. There was some issues in Los Alcatraz a few years ago, and if you put it in, you can see it.
There's been a lot of work with Los Alcatraz to fix it, you know.
And it won't be every properties. You know, some properties have been built up, to compensate for it. So, I mean, to be honest, that's no different to the UK. I mean, you'd still check those things out in the UK. But it's just not as obvious here. If there's not been any rain for ages, you wouldn't know that was something that's been happening.
And it does happen. It can happen. So it's definitely something to keep in mind for sure. It was a terrible one it was October, wasn't it, last year in Valencia? I'm sure everybody saw on the news where a lot of people died, hundreds of people died in this area in Valencia. So it does, when it rains, it rains, like it really comes down sometimes. So something to keep in mind as well.
And the other thing you get is you get this really dirty rain from the Sahara. So if it hasn't rained for a bit, can't rain for a bit, then it rains. It always happens the day after I have a car clean.
Yeah, we clean your windows.
It just comes out, and it's like, literally, it's like just somebody's throwing a bucket of sand on your car.
Yeah, it's mad. It's called a kalima.
Kalima.
Yeah, it's kalima. So it's like and you can see it hanging in the air before it happens.
Yeah, it's like red. When you look up into the sky, it's a little bit red.
Yeah, orangey, reddy tints of the sky.
It comes down, but you know it's happened overnight because it's your car's filled with it.
Yeah, it happens.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And your pool gets full. So that's another thing. If you're not here for a long time, get a pool cover. Because when that goes in your pool, it takes you ages to get it out of the vacuum.
Yeah.
So, get pool.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. And but of course as well, the weather has a huge impact on the way of life and how relaxed the whole atmosphere is. And this is also something really important to keep in mind when you're moving to Spain. And picking where it is that you want to live, because the way of life and the pace of life is different in different areas. So I always say, it matters even more where you come from as well. So if you come from living in like London or Leeds or Manchester, cities, like proper cities, and then you come and move over to a small town on the coast of Spain, if you're moving to rural kind of towns or coastal towns, the way of life is much slower. And that's something that can bother you or not. Maybe you really want a break from city life, but if you enjoy fast-paced things happening quite quickly, lots of stuff happening, lots of places to go, if you like that type of city life and then you move to the coast, then you'll certainly notice the change in pace. And people say then Spain and Spanish people are so relaxed and they're so this and they're so, no, it's rural living. That's how it is in a small town. If you go to Madrid, it's fast paced, and people often say Spanish people have no ambition. It's so nice. You come to Spain, they enjoy their lives and they're not a bit ambitious. It's like, how many Spanish people are there? Like 48 million people. Some people are ambitious.
Yeah, some of them. And also I think it's what they put priority on.
Yeah.
Like to us, the dripping tap's the end of the world. So like, well, what's going on? It's not a major problem. We'll get it sorted for you on Wednesday or Thursday. Does it really matter? And I think you need to, think about that when you, join in with it, because you're not going to change it.
Yeah.
So, join in it and you'll have such a much better time. I always work on the principle that if you get told something here, it doesn't matter whether they're Spanish or English, you get told something and they say it's going to be a week, work on the principle that it's going to be 2 weeks instead of 1, and that de-stresses you. And then when it happens in 10 days, which is actually late, but it's not really, it's actually 3 days early, you have to thank them for finishing so quickly. And it gets rid of that stress. Because like I said, you're not going to beat it. So,
well, you have to think about the fact that you cannot rush around this heat. You cannot rush around in this heat. Have you ever tried to you were saying that
has taught me a lesson.
Yeah.
Trying to move furniture and items in the afternoon in summer was stupid, and my body told me it was stupid. I felt wrong, really did.
Spanish people know how to live with the weather. They know when to go out. They know when to stay in. And you won't see a Spanish person out in the middle of the day when it's hot. No. And that's why I say sometimes people will say, it's so quiet in this town and that town. Probably not like at 9 o'clock in the morning, or probably not at 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night. It's going to be really busy. But in the middle of the day, for some reason, we keep our own schedule. We come over from Ireland and maybe we'll have a sleep on or something like that the weekend. Then we'll go up and have our breakfast. Then we'll head out about 12 o'clock, and the Spanish people are heading back. They're going back in away from the sun, whereas you have to adapt your life to the heat when you live in Spain. You really do.
But it also affects. I noticed it with when we bought this apartment for my mother to move from the house into an apartment. I needed some work doing on it. And it was winter. It was sort of November, but the siesta times are still honoured. So we're working on the property, but we weren't able to work on it between 3 and 5 o'clock. Even though it wasn't sunny, there wasn't the same reason for having a siesta as there would be in the summer. But that had to be honoured in the law, and you honour it. The other thing I saw the other day, it infuriated me. It was an article on, I don't know, Facebook or something. It said Spanish people are really lazy. They go for a siesta. The thing is, and I've experienced it because I've worked there, they start at 8 o'clock in the morning, they finish at 2, they restart at 5, but they don't finish till 9. So that's not lazy. You've still done 8 full hours or 9 full hours. You just happen to have a longer break in the middle of it because, that's how the system works.
And the siesta actually comes from the history of it is they created that break in the middle of the day because a lot of people needed 2 jobs. And so it was giving them that time to come home, have their dinner, and give them time to get to their next job. So historically, it comes from the fact that, well, Spain back in the day used to be a poor country and people needed to do multiple jobs. And so that's the history of the siesta. Then over time, it changed a little bit and people start having to rest in the middle of the day when they worked morning and worked in the evening, like a split shift. And then when you talk to business owners, so I work for a local newspaper, and so I do a lot of interviews with business owners and about these kind of topics and stuff, because they want people to know they're not lazy, bless them. But they often say, like, if they work in a restaurant or they work in a shop, a lot of times they close the doors and they work for another hour or so. Maybe they'll have their lunch when they're there, but they're restocking shelves and they're doing other bits and bobs in the middle of the day before they reopen again. So it's not like necessarily a 4-hour break or.
But it's more difficult nowadays. I mean, historically, I guess like anywhere in the world, businesses, your house would have been closer to your business. Whereas now, if you work in Murcia, you're not going to drive all the way back from Murcia on a 20-minute sleep, then go back into Murcia. So they that's probably why it changes a little bit. When we had the bar, we used to do breakfast and serve, up until midnight or sometime in the height of the summer, 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So we'd close them out at 4 o'clock, and then we'd reopen at sort of 8 o'clock and then do the evening shift. But when you were closing at 4 o'clock, you had to clean up, finish what you'd just done. And then for the 8 o'clock, you had to do sort of hours prepping before you did the evening. So I used to just sleep on the floor.
Yeah, it's just like, it's not much of a break, really, when you think about it.
Well, they were 16-hour days.
People who work in hospitality in Spain are the hardest workers I've ever come across. Like, I did it for a little while, and I would complain all the time, and they just do it. They just do it. They do it without complaining most of the time as well. Like, it's unreal. My other half is a chef, and the hours he works and the heat that he works in at the moment, I don't know how he does it. They're such hard workers, and that's why it really drives me up the wall when I hear people like what you said, saying Spanish people being lazy. Because honestly, I've never come across a harder working people, to be honest. I look at Spanish people and how it works. So yeah, I'm always there. And to me, I think the lateness thing, that kind of annoys me as well, because I'm a late person, so I'm Irish, and my other half, Alex, he's like ultra early, like annoyingly early. Honestly, my son comes out of school at around 5 o'clock. He leaves the house at 4:15, and he has to drive. I think it's a 10-minute drive to collect him from school, and he leaves 45 minutes early, and then sits outside the school for about half an hour.
Well done.
He is ultra early. So for me, the lateness is a people thing, not a population thing. But follow along me, because I'm like anti-generalization. I hate generalizing about saying an entire population of one country is always late. It does my head in. So yeah, but
That's what I was saying.
I don't
I didn't mean it. Just meant, laid back.
They can be, and definitely they do prioritize other things in life, there's not as much bustle and hustle.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, you don't, and it's right. You do not call somebody on a weekend. If you want a tradesperson, they probably won't answer your phone. No matter how urgent you think it is, they won't answer it. But that's right. In 99% of the cases, did it really matter? That it happened to be on a Monday, and it's the same even with like banks and things. Yeah. If you've got a transaction on a Friday, it's very unlikely that anything will happen about that transaction until Monday. Yeah. And so they aren't honouring the time off. And is that wrong? Spain's got the longest life expectancy in the world, I think. Or definitely do.
I think it was some town in Japan or something, but they're saying by whatever year, I can't remember.
That's their robots.
Yeah, that Spain is going to be if it's not already, that's going to be the longest. What's it called? The life expectancy. Yeah, I think as well. Murcia and Maria are up there. I think it's the towns in this area that are the Mediterranean.
But that has to be, something, some part of that is obviously perhaps the diet and things, but it's got to be the mentality.
Or stress.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, so many people obviously because of things like that. So.
Yeah, and community is part of it as well. Like, because I love those programs like blue zones and stuff. They talk about longevity and age and all that. And community and how walkable towns are is also a huge impact on the how long you live and stuff. So like just meeting your neighbours in the street and just having that little chat about whatever you're bringing to the bins and stuff like that. Those little conversations.
One of the favourite things of being here is yesterday I went for a walk. I got invited for this route away, and walking along the prom, and you forget until obviously this time of year is the people sat in the sea, but because the majority of Spain is on the east coast, and so the sun is always up the beach rather than out to sea, unless you're on the islands of Ibiza and they're different. But on the mainland Spain, the sort of sunset and the sun going down is always at the back of the beach rather than over the sea. So you're walking along, and there must be, hundreds of people sat in the sea. Some of them have taken chairs into the sea, facing up the beach rather than down the beach. In groups of say 15 of them, who probably only meet in a major holiday time, just sitting there talking in the sea at like 9 o'clock at night, like this, walked up to here, sat facing. It's fantastic, and you can hear it. There's like a chum or two. Well, that's fantastic.
That's what I did on Sunday. We went because they're the heat wave. Some people denying the heat wave, but there is a heat wave. On Sunday, we were like, well, I'm not going down to the beach in the middle of the day when it's the hottest time of the day. So we went down to the beach about 6 and we stayed there until 9. And then you got churros and chocolate after and then strolled home. And that's what we did. That was lovely. It was the perfect time to go. It was really nice. And another thing to mention as well, just within what we're talking about, timetable and heat and stuff, a lot of places do open earlier and close earlier. So while maybe you feel like everything closes a bit early in Spain, sometimes I hear people talking about that. Schools, kids that go to public secondary school, they start at 8:15 and they finish a bit earlier. Some banks open at 8:30, and then they close a bit earlier. So sometimes places will open a bit earlier. And as you said before, everything then opens again later on at night. So you'll find often that in Spain, later on at night, it's very busy again. And in fact, a lot of Spanish people always say to me when they go to Ireland, oh my God, how did you live there with how the shops close at like 5 and 6 every single day? And I'm like, oh yeah, that is like only one day that we open late shopping in Ireland. I think it's still like that. Thursday late night shopping. Spanish people cannot deal with that. They're like, you finish work and the shops are already closed. Like, how do you go shopping? Like, they don't even.
I heard one the other day on, I can't remember again, Facebook, I think, and they said, why are shops not open on Sunday? Typically on Mercadona. Mercadona doesn't offer it does in San Javier there are 2. And in July and August, they open one of them on Sunday. Yeah. They don't open the other one, just one. But for the rest of the year, they're not open on a Sunday.
Yeah, and they'll close on bank holidays.
Close on bank holidays. Yeah, but it's back to the same thing. That's a day of rest, and that applies to everybody, not just the customers, but also the employees.
Unless you work in hospitality.
I mean, that's across the board. As a Carrefour near us, that's open 365 days a year, so on Christmas Day. But in general, particularly private shops, they close on bank holidays and.
I think Mercadona is kind of famous for that, aren't they? Because they're owned by the Spanish owner. What was he called? Honboish or something like that.
Well, I like him. He's my favourite.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. Mercadona is how supermarkets should be.
Yeah, he's from Valencia, and he's kind of famous for really thinking about his staff and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So there you go. Shopping tip. Try Mercadona.
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of nicely leads us on to the next sort of subject, really, which is sort of cost of living.
Yeah.
Because what we've just been talking about going for a walk, sitting on the beach, it's very rare to be charged for parking in a beach location. Very rare. And so, doing that, take your own food, take your own drink, costs you nothing.
Yeah.
You can have a whole day out for absolutely nothing, And the same with the supermarkets, when you move to Spain and then you live in here, if you live more like a Spaniard, you will save yourself a fortune. You know, Mercadona, the sort of veg area is probably, well, a quarter of the size of what it would be in a Tesco's in the UK. But it's because they only put things in there, or mainly only put things in there that are seasonal.
Yeah.
So, but because they're seasonal, they're a sensible price. You know, if you want to buy some weird and wonderful thing, well, you won't get it in Mercadona probably, but if you went into another supermarket, you'd be paying a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
In Spain, you know, the veg that are there is seasonal to the time. So, like, if you try and get a melon in winter, you won't get one. But now, the central aisle of the veg area is absolutely full of melons, and they're ridiculously cheap because they're in season.
And then as well, I think supermarkets are aware that a lot of people go to the markets for fruit and veg, don't they? You know,
Yeah.
they'll go to the markets for that. And because the markets are, again, another way to live like Spanish people is to go to the markets. And people love that experience anyway. And, you know, and you can pick up the stuff there from nothing practically. It's so cheap.
My mum's 78 and 74, and she uses Mercadona for home delivery, and she absolutely loves it. Absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
And the great thing about it is I've seen them doing it. When you go in, let's do it sort of the evening before for the next morning. And they have people going around, well, it's probably the same anyway, but picking things. But they're not, you know, they pick the best things. My mum said when she gets the fruit and veg, it's absolutely immaculate.
That's the ones that are like just ripe and let's eat it. There's a lot of care goes to it, right? And that they package it and deliver it and all that kind of stuff.
Because I mean, my mother lives in an apartment now. She's only second floor, and there is a lift, but still carrying different stuff is hard to do.
Especially fruit and veg, it's fun.
Yeah, and water, you know, the big 8-litre bottles of water. So they bring it, and they bring it to your apartment door, not to the door of the apartment, to your apartment door. So
Nice lads as well in this area anyway. Very nice.
yeah. So that combined with like this, you know, this ability to be able to go and do something effectively, particularly if you've got kids, do something for free, definitely keeps the cost of living down. And like I say, buy things that are in season, and also, you know, if you're going for a drink, not to go to some of the backstreet bars. Don't go to the ones that are in the you know, frontline locations, because they'll be paying more rent or more rates or whatever. The ones at the back pay less, and you can get what we call a caddy, which is like a half of beer, less than €2 easily. With the backstreet bar.
Tackle with it for free sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Depending on the place.
So all things like that can keep the cost of living down. It's hard for me to compare now because I don't really know the prices of UK sort of electric, gas, etc. But you know what I say to people is, you know, your electricity bill is probably not going to be particularly cheap if you're using your aircon quite a lot. But you just have to accept that you need to use it, you know, and account that because it's so uncomfortable without it. We're in this room now, and we wouldn't be able to be in that.
I mean, even with the aircon on, you still get used to the aircon being on, and your body starts to adapt, and you can notice yourself even getting warm with the aircon on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay, it's fine, but yeah, like you need it, like 100% need the aircon on.
Yeah, but you do sort of get used to that as well. I mean, in my apartment, I might have it on, let's say, 23.5 or 24. Because it's still a drop of sort of 10, 12 degrees. And in the winter, when you sat somewhere, you might have it on a 21, 22. So your body's used to that temperature. But you go in, you know, particularly when it's like a rental place, and I had a place that I rented, and the aircon was set at 15. You know, 15's freezing. Absolutely freezing. And the aircon machine's working absolutely flat to try and do it. And I used to get complaints about, oh, it's leaking, there's water coming out of it, it must be a burst pipe. It's not a burst pipe, it's condensed water because it's working so hard to cool it down from 35, 36, 37 degrees down to 15. It's just condensation. There is no water in an aircon system. So, you know, again, because we've had this past few days of really high heat, you're going onto Facebook and people wanting aircon engineers because their aircon system's dripping. It's not a leak. It's literally it's working too hard. You know, try just put it up. You know, put it up to 2 or 3 degrees, and you probably find in most cases it'll stop. Or it's perhaps just the drains blocked. So.
Yeah, and also there's ways to kind of keep your home cool so that you can optimize the time that you use the aircon. You know, so in Spain you have the blinds. They're called persianas. So you have those blinds that you pull down. So I'm like, you know, so strict. Everyone has like pull the blinds down, you know, once it's like past 12 o'clock.
It's pitch black in here downstairs. You come in like one of them miners' apps.
Have all the blinds down, and then on the front of the house, and then when the sun moves around, like the blinds are down on the other side of the house, and it really keeps the house cool. And then mopping the floors, like as well, like cools the temperature of the house down, and lots of little things that you can do. Again, living like Spanish people live, because that's what they do. You know, having certain windows open so you get the breeze, cross breeze, is very important.
Yeah, south-facing window and a north-facing window. So I'm both open because the air is cooler on the north side. It rushes in through that window and then goes out through the hole.
Yeah, 100%. And you need to do all these little things, because otherwise you would need the air conditioning on 24 hours, and you'd need to have like you do win the lotto to pay for that. So you do need to, you know, optimize the times. So if you keep your house cool like that, then, you know, when you get to a point in the day where it's just, you know, you can't deal with the heat anymore, then you pop your aircon on, and you can notice such a difference. Like, you know, it's cooler much quicker, and it stays cooler for longer. So there are things that you can do as well to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you know, if you're having a house built or you're moving into a house, is it double glazed? Yeah. Because you think, oh, you don't need double glazings for winter. No, double glazings for summer as well. It's just the same. When I lived up Castellso, we rented a property from a Scandinavian builder, and he was building houses for the Spanish market. And he was building double thick walls and triple glazing in these houses. You know, and they were expensive houses, but when he talked to you about it, it made total sense. In his house, which he used as the sort of show house, his house was 21 degrees inside, 365 days a year, because of how he built it.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the old Spanish houses, those old Spanish houses, how thick the walls are, how high the roofs are as well, so the heat goes up. I mean, there's something in that, isn't there?
Yeah. So it's always worth looking at, you know, that sort of thing.
You might have to pay a little bit more in the beginning, but it will save you money in the long run, you know.
Yeah. And also, you know, if somebody's looking into that level of detail, they're probably looking into detail like damp-proof courses and things like that. So, you know, it's worth looking at.
Especially on the coast, because it's very humid on the coast, so it's something that you do have to think about as well when you move to Spain, isn't it? Damp in the house.
A lot of the houses sometimes you go into, they'll on the ground floor, they'll have they'll have tiles.
Yeah.
And that usually means it's damp. Yes, there's damp down there. So, you know, watch out for that.
Yeah.
It's not just a decorative feature, it usually means you're a little bit damp. But, yeah, something to look for. And also the orientation of the house. You know, you have to decide what you really want. There's a lot of houses built here, and they're sort of built for tourists a little bit, so they'll have a roof terrace. There's a lot of time you can't use that. You know, you would not be able to use a roof terrace at the minute, I don't think.
No. I mean,
It's so hot.
and they make me feel like I have sunstroke just looking at them.
Yeah. So, yeah, bear that in mind. That is something great for your 2-week holiday, but for living, will you use it?
Yeah.
We're going to go into properties a lot more in the future. We've got at least 2 guests coming on. One who's a very experienced real estate agent in resort and coastal properties and sort of town properties. And then another one who's an expert in country properties. So please, if you've got any questions, any experiences, please send them to hello@Spainfullyhonest.com and just put property as the subject. That'd be great, because then we can ask some questions for these experts when they're coming on and try and help you, or just give us general information so we can talk about it.
Okay, so we realized when we checked the footage that we've been talking for quite a long time this week, close to 2 hours.
Big subject.
So it's easier for everyone to listen to. We're going to break it down into a couple of different parts. So we can have part 1 and part 2, or maybe there's even 3 parts. But yeah, so just to let you know that
what Catherine's actually saying is that I waffle a lot. And I went on so much, that's what she was saying. She's polite, very polite.
I think there's a lot to say on that subject though, so it was important to kind of talk about it. And as we've said before, in future episodes, we'll break down each topic then a little bit more, dissect each topic, and we'll break them down. But even today, we wanted to go in a little bit deeper into each area. So yeah, it took us nearly 2 hours we were talking. So we're going to break it down so it's easy to listen to. We don't want it to be a 2-hour podcast.
And if you don't like listening to us for so long, the best thing to do is send us in your experiences and questions to hello@Spainfullyhonest.com. See you later.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.